is, let's say someone is struggling right now mentally. They know they need to do something. Maybe they're on medication, maybe they're not, things like that. What's step one?
Step one is definitely acknowledging that, something is wrong. And that's okay. I think a lot of people think if there's something wrong, that shows weakness or there's something wrong with you. But the fact is we all have mental health issues at some point or another in our lives. So realizing that is normal and okay is, I would say, step one.
Sruti Kamprath is a USPTA certified tennis pro and holds her master's degree in counseling psychology. She is here today to give us some insight into mental health within fitness. In today's conversation, we discuss how to make sure our fitness journey stays not only physically healthy, but mentally as well. We also discuss how to compare to others in a positive way versus negative, and the overall connection between physical and mental health. If you find value in this content, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment or review letting us know how it was helpful. Welcome to Only the Greatest Podcast. If you're feeling stuck and unsure what to do next in your fitness journey, we might be what you're looking for. My name is Philip. I own and operate OTG Fitness, which is a private personal training gym on the south side of Houston in Webster. I do this podcast every week with my best friend, Daryl. We've been friends since third grade and working out together ever since. Also joining us today will be Sean. He's the one that makes this podcast not only sound great, but look good as well. Our goal here is to help Houston make its way up the ladder of health and fitness. So if you're in the Houston area and ready to become the greatest version of yourself, be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Sruti, thank you so much for being here. I really am looking forward to this because personally, I'm super interested to hear from someone like yourself that is obviously knowledgeable and educated on the mental health side of things, which is mostly what we're talking about, right? But you are very unique in the fact that you're also do a lot of modeling. Mm-hmm. And so what an interesting perspective of two completely, what people might think are completely different sides of the spectrum, where, mental health, being happy with what you have and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But then modeling, which is like the ultimate form of the physical body. Mm-hmm. So I just thought that was a very interesting perspective to have. So what got you into modeling and mental health? That's just such an interesting, combination of talents that you have.
Yeah. So thanks for having me.
Sure.
Happy to be here today. So with modeling and mental health, my first interest was always mental health. So since I went to college and then also got my master's in mental health related degrees, I've always wanted to become a counselor. So I'm in the process of actually getting my associate license to start getting hours for full licensure. And modeling, not gonna lie, I enjoy being behind a camera.
Okay.
And
in front of or behind?
Behind, in front of.
In front of. Okay. I just making sure. Maybe you do both. Yeah,
actually,
like Sean.
Yeah. I do a little bit of modeling.
Yeah.
Not really. No, I'm joking.
I like both because
cool.
I feel that being behind and in front of the camera gives you two different perspectives. So actually, sometimes being behind it, you can see what poses work better with people and then how to improve yourself. Mm-hmm. And I actually feel the same way with modeling and mental health. Because I have good mental health, that allows me to elevate my modeling and not get caught up in, unrealistic types of, body shape and such.
When it comes to counseling, is that the types of people that you aspire to work with, like people that are dealing with physical appearance issues and things like that? Or do you have a specific area that you prefer to work in or people that you enjoy helping?
Yeah, so specifically, I would like to work with people who have anxiety and depression because in my experience, I've seen most people tend to have some level of anxiety of depression. I see it in most people. So I feel that that's the general population and that's who I want to work with. But yeah, if there's body dysmorphia issues as well, or just how people see themselves, that as is something I'm interested in. But I noticed that because of social media, that kind of really affects most people. So whether or not I want to work with that, it's going to happen.
Yeah, sure. Definitely social media has a lot to do with this, and I feel like we're going to cover that probably in a couple different times today. Sure. But you mentioned that you see it in most people. What do you see? What do you mean by you see it? What is it?
Yes, it means like symptoms of anxiety or depression. And most of the time they're hidden to people who aren't like that self-aware because they don't know really what like symptoms of anxiety and depression are. So for example, let's say we're all just sitting in a room having a conversation and there's someone sitting in the corner just scrolling on their phone. They're not able to focus on anything other than their phone. They're basically uncomfortable in silence or just observing. So people like to occupy themselves to not deal with certain feelings. So I actually see that a lot. Like even in younger kids as well, like they have a harder time like sitting still. Like they always have to do something.
Yeah, I feel like they have difficulty in the conversation a lot of times.
Yes.
I have an example as well. Let me know what you think about this, and then we can dig into some of our topics here. But my girlfriend works as a bartender and a server sometimes. And I was at the restaurant eating one time, and there was a group of young boys next to me, probably late teenagers, I would guess, 17 to 20 years old.
Yeah.
And one of them... And I love my girlfriend very much. She's beautiful, amazing person. So maybe they're intimidated. I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of that going on.
Sure.
But he just couldn't seem to communicate. He seemed to be dug into his phone. You know, even she would ask about, what would you like, or how to what do you want with your food and drinks and stuff like that. Just couldn't seem to communicate very well. So I'm assuming from what you're saying, that is a symptom of depression, anxiety, both?
Probably both. A lot of these symptoms actually overlap. And I think that when we don't learn how to express ourselves, we just don't know how. So that comes out in another way. Like maybe if he was anxious or like possibly depressed or maybe intimidated, like you said, it's safer to just be buried in your phone.
Interesting. I never thought about it that way. It's like a safety mechanism.
Like you want to feel safe. You don't want to feel uncomfortable, whether that's mentally or physically. So we try to do what we can to feel safe.
Yeah. So you're avoiding the hard things.
Exactly.
How interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. And it actually, now I feel kind of bad, to be honest, because I've thought this was like probably close to a year ago. And I just remember it very clearly because I was very shocked by this interaction. I was like, man, this is so strange. And now I feel some sympathy for him. You know, I can still see his face in my head. And now, where before I was like, man, this is what a weird situation. Where now that weirdness is turning into sympathy.
Yeah, that's actually something I reframed in my own thinking as well. I think sometimes if we take like offense or we think something is weird about the way a person interacts with us, it's rarely about us and it's more so to do with them and what they're going through. So, yeah.
This person just needs some support, maybe.
Sorry.
Or no, go ahead.
I was going to say on the situation of not knowing how to, like, approach and, like, come into a conversation. There was a situation I just experienced, like, last night. And I was I was chatting with some friends on this platform called Discord, and we're all talking, and we had a friend come in, and it's in this service, when someone comes into the chat room, everyone knows, but we're all having a conversation, talking, just laughing, nothing too serious, very light, and this other friend is in, and no one really, like, greets him, but we all know he's there, and then after a while, he just, just yelled super loud, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, we know you're here. We know you're here, but now that all the attention has been directed to you, let's roll out the red carpet for you now. And he thought it was kind of funny. I didn't think it was funny at all. I thought it was pretty annoying, but I think that, that can be linked to something too, just like this like not knowing how to communicate, like you said, like like you're in front of someone and they're asking you something simple like, hey, what would you like to eat? And you're just like, you know, and it's like it was weird. So it was like something. Now that we're having the conversation, I felt like it kind of came together a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. It sounded like maybe this person wasn't okay with no one greeting him.
Yeah.
So obviously he didn't know how to say, hey guys, I'm not okay with this. So instead I'm just going to yell.
Yeah. So I made sure to give him a nice greeting. Yeah. Very nice.
Won't let it happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, speaking of being in, you know, situations where you're not feeling good, maybe depression, anxiety, and things like that, can we talk a little bit about how that's connected to our physical body? Like, yeah, it's one thing to have depression, anxiety, but how does that connect with the physical body? Because obviously I'm a personal trainer. Fitness is what I do for a living. And it is my belief that when you do physical things, you feel better, and it starts this spiral. And kind of before this, I'll give you a little bit of, I know we don't know each other, right? We just met each other today. So I'll tell you that as a teenager, I was overweight. I lost almost 100 pounds. It changed my life. My mom died when she was in her 30s. So I was 15 years old. I have never met my father. And so I was in a very depressed state from the age of 15 to about 19 until I lost weight. And I started working out, and everything got better. So you knowing that about me and me asking you this question, can we talk a little bit about the connect? What happened with doing more physical things and then my mental health getting better? Like what's going on there? Tell me about it, and maybe I'll have some follow-up questions.
Sure.
As well.
So thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry that, you went through that.
Thanks.
But that is really, difficult, and I can't imagine what that must be like, especially at such a young age, But I think for many people, including yourself, physical fitness, exercise is a type of catharsis. So what I mean by that is sometimes we need to get out our emotions and feelings, and rather than just talking about them or doing something to get them out, physically getting them out makes us feel better. So I think too, the endorphins released when you work out, that just puts you in a better mood overall. But it's interesting because you got into working out. I think the other way too, like some people in that situation might feel really down and sad and just end up, maybe eating more or feeling depressed. So it's good that you had the ability to make that choice to pursue fitness, which ended up, to be good for you. But I don't think a lot of people make that choice because sometimes it's what's easier for me now. And the easier isn't always the best thing for you.
Yeah, I heard this quote one time that said, what's easy in the short run is often worse for you in the long run.
Yes.
What's harder in the short run is better for you in the long run.
Exactly.
And, for me at least, it took me a couple of years. There was a couple of years there, like 3-4 years of, eating more, feeling worse, not exercising, feeling worse. And then, before that thing turned around. So if people are in that state now of what you're saying, feeling bad, not able to come around, right? They feel bad about their body. Like what's step one? How do they get out of that?
So step one is just having that realization that there is a problem, there is an issue, and that's okay because we all deal with, problems and issues. But once you get to step one is the hardest. Once you acknowledge that that problem exists, then you can take the next step, which is what is the next step to solve that, right? So what can you realistically do? Like maybe you're not going to wake up at 5 a.m. and work out every day, but maybe it starts with something as simple as eating a healthy breakfast. So it's the little attainable steps that have the most results and effort.
And why is that? Why is the small things so important? Why is it so important to not overcommit to such a huge thing?
Yes, because overcommitting actually leads to a faster relapse because we commit to things that we can't handle. So if I say like, I'm not going to eat sweets for a month, maybe I get to day 26 and then I just can't stand it anymore and I eat a tub of chocolate. So it's like the same thing. If you overcommit, it's not realistic. So you need to be realistic with yourself. So that's going to differ per person. But yeah.
Yeah, because, something that obviously, once again, I do personal training, right? I talk to people every day about this, and they all, obviously, I'm there to make a recommendation.
Sure.
And a lot of times people ask me, and then, and then my question, the first thing they ask me is like, how often should I work out? Well, I hit them with another question. Well, what can you commit to realistically?
Yes.
Because in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, even if you have the perfect plan, the ability to execute a not so perfect plan is still better than creating a perfect plan and then not being able to execute on it.
Yes, I completely agree. Because what's the point of a perfect plan if you can't execute it, right? So committing to something that you know for a fact you can execute is going to actually make the changes.
Yeah, because I've seen so often, like, let's talk about like frequency of exercise as an example. If you say you're going to work out 4 days a week, but you only make it 3, you feel like you failed. But if your plan is to only do 3, and you make it 3, now you feel on top of the world.
And you exceeded your own expectations. And I think that actually has to do with how you see yourself. So what you were saying about exercising, I think, whether it's like lifting weights or running, you're showing to yourself that you can do it. And I think that improves your self-image. And then having an improved self-image leads to, better eating, better mental health, etc.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I mean, obviously, I've known that this works, but I never thought about it in that way where, all I'm doing is proving to myself that I am good, I am great, I can do this thing, and then it kind of starts that momentum rolling, right?
It's like you get the confidence from actually doing and not only thinking and just like, I'm going to be the guy that goes to the gym 6 days a week. And then it's like, no, I am the person that goes to the gym 4 days a week and I crush it every time. So it's like you have the confidence to show up and know that you can do that because you've done it already rather than just kind of fantasizing about it.
Yes. And I think that confidence built by actually doing rather than fantasizing or creating plans you can't execute, that inner strength that builds up from that is what really, I think, helps mental health,
Yeah. Why are people creating such these lofty goals that are unattainable? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it's because, I'm not pointing a finger at social media, but I think it has a lot to do with it because we see things that's like, oh, this person has like a perfect 6-pack or like a perfect body and their workout regimen is working out like 7 days a week. So then we're like, let me work out 8 days, even though that's not like a thing, right?
As you're scrolling on the couch.
Exactly. So it's like, how can I, if this person does this, what can I do to be like that person or better? So I think we see unattainable and unrealistic goals. And because of that, we set the standard unrealistically high for ourselves.
Do you think people feel pressured to create these huge goals?
Definitely. I really think so because, it's not like glamorous if I say, I'm going to commit to working out 1 day a week, Like no one's going to clap their hands.
No one's like, way to go. Great job.
Exactly. So
you're so brave.
Yeah, exactly. So like we want to be liked by other people. We want other people to notice us. So if I say I'm going to work out 1 day a week or 7 days a week, which one is going to get more attention?
Yeah. Why do we care so much about what other people think?
I think this goes back like historically just to like mankind in general. We're like a group species, right? Like we thrive in groups. So we want others in the group to respect us and to feel belonging because when we feel isolated,
that's how cavemen died.
Exactly. That's how you die back in the day.
Yeah.
So like survival mechanisms and stuff, if the group likes you, you are safer. So if you're more of like the, black sheep of the bunch, you're probably going to die. I mean, according to caveman logic.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that if you think about these groups, you can leave one group. Yeah. And you might be the black sheep for a little bit, but then you can join another one.
Yes.
And I remember, let's see, it's probably been maybe 7 or 8 years ago-ish now. Like the group of people that I really spent a lot of time with.
Yeah.
I just, you know, and I was the black, and it was hard, real hard. You know, I was, at that point, there was a lot of alcohol and things like that. And I decided I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And I felt like the black sheep for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I was different, and, you know, people almost like made fun of even.
Yeah.
But then I found another group. And so why is that so hard though? Why is it so hard to make that transition when deep in our mind, we know that's the right thing to do. I need to go with this group that doesn't drink, they eat healthy and stuff. But why is that so difficult?
So personally, I think it really has to do with the person's age. Like, let's say you are like elementary or high school. You don't want to be the kid that no one sits with at lunch. Like, you don't want to be the black sheep because it's harder to deal with. Like, you're so new to like life and everything, right? So it's hard. But then I think once you have like your own self-image and like you are your own person, it's a lot easier to leave one group and go to one that's actually beneficial for you. So it sounds like that's something that happened with you from that example.
Yeah, that's a great point. You have to become fulfilled with the decision that you make.
Yes.
To be yourself.
Yeah.
And not necessarily have to associate.
Yeah.
And maybe because of our primal instincts or whatever, once you do that, you slowly but surely associate with the same people that are your new self.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's when you have an idea of self-identity, which is why I think, you know, how like kids in high school might not get with the best crowd. Maybe they might be like, you know, good students and everything, but they might not realize like how dangerous that is at the time, or maybe they want to switch to another group, but it's better to stay in a bad group and be liked than possibly be a black sheep, at least at that point in life. That's something that I've noticed.
Yeah, I do agree that the risk of leaving is high.
Not when you're older.
Yeah, well, because when you're older, you almost like you just kind of naturally separate. I feel like so it's a little easier when you get older because, you know, jobs and responsibilities, life, kids and stuff like that. Yeah. So maybe it becomes easier. And you also have the perspective. Like you're saying, as a kid or a young person in general, you don't have the experience to make that risk calculation.
Exactly.
You know, but as I gain experience, I can make this risk calculation. I've seen more people be successful with not doing these certain things. But yeah, and when you're young, you just care so much about being liked. You know, and I think too, fitness specific, if we're talking in a, you know, health and fitness area, it's I want other people to like the way that I look. Yeah. Right. And I do agree that social media, seeing the cream of the crop all the time.
Yes. The keyword or key phrase is all the time. We're inundated with that everywhere, like TV, Netflix, our phones. We don't really see like what realistic people look like. So I think that really messes with you know, how we see people. Yeah,
and I have to have this conversation all the time because you know, sometimes I'll talk to someone that has a certain goal, and I'm like, that's a great goal, but we need to kind of dial it back a little bit because that specific thing might not be realistic for you in this moment in time. That person that you're looking at has been working out for X amount of years. You know, do you really want to make the sacrifices? You're 40 years old now. That person that you're seeing is much younger and things like that. But and these conversations are very difficult for people to have. Yeah. But at some point, in my opinion, I think there is a healthy like type of comparison. So how do we get out of unhealthy comparisons and into healthier comparisons? Because do you agree that you have to compare yourself to like I know for sure in fitness and a lot of times in medical stuff, they're comparing to population averages. That's comparison. Yeah. Right. So how do we keep this comparison stuff healthy and not let it get too out of control?
Yeah, so I think that's a very gray area. So looping back to what we were talking about earlier, I think anything that spurs a healthy motivation. Like anything you see that makes you like get up off the couch and go for a run, that is like a good type of like comparison, you know, like, oh, I need to go work out. But seeing like an image or something that makes you think, wow, like I hate myself, that is an unhealthy comparison. So anything that gives you motivation to like get up, get going, you know, be healthy, I think that is like a good line to draw. But then anything that makes you feel bad about yourself, like the goal shouldn't be to feel bad. It's to motivate you to do something about it, even if it's not like every day of the week, you know?
Yeah, but how do we avoid feeling that like feeling of impossibility? You know, yeah, I look at a guy who's got like a 6-pack and his arms are huge and he's got like a 30-inch waist, like,
are you scrolling on my Instagram again, man?
Yeah, I'm describing Sean, if you didn't notice. But how do I look at this image of Sean and be motivated instead of like feel
defeated?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what process? You know, what's going on there? Like, what do I need to do to change that?
So honestly, not gonna lie, that is really hard to do, but it's not impossible. But I think first of all is recognizing that, you know, like that is unrealistic or maybe unattainable, at least like right now. You can't look at a 6-pack and say like, I'm going to get one by tomorrow unless you, I don't know, get it through surgery or something. But I don't think it's going to work that way.
Yeah, get it on Amazon probably, get some little one-day shipping or something like that.
One-day shipping for a 6-pack.
Yeah.
So I personally think actually limiting social media like consumption, that's something that helps me because I feel like if you're constantly looking or just seeing things that are unrealistic, you're going to think that is reality. But if you check in with actual reality, that helps you really kind of figure out that balance, like spending time with real people, like talking to real people and such versus just being on your phone all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. We escape reality into our phones at the moment feels like an escape, but if anything, it's getting us deeper into this unrealistic situation. So something that, and I hate admitting this, but I'll be honest with you. Obviously, I do help people lose weight, like as part of my job, right? So when I'm in public places, I often scan and look around, and I count like how the percentage of people that are like obese, right? And I hate that I do that. I just can't. It's just something that I do. I'm formerly an obese person, so I feel like maybe that gives me a little bit of, you know, I don't want to say the right to do that. That sounds really bad, but it is what it is.
Makes you feel more acceptable.
Yeah, exactly. And what I've noticed is because I'm in this industry, my social media is full of it, right? Sometimes I forget what the actual population really looks like until I do that drill where I go to the mall and I look around at all the people and I'm like, there's probably only 10% of people in here that are, that I would put, then personally I would put in like the fit category. And that's a very loose definition, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is interesting how that happens where you just completely forget.
Yeah, because we're constantly immersed in things that are not realistic, and that becomes our reality until we actually go, like you said, and see what people look like in real life.
How do you overcome the staying out of your phone? You said limit your social media. Like, what's your trick to that? Like, how do you do that?
So the moment I start getting upset or irritated while I'm looking at my phone, I take a step back mentally, and I'm like, why is what I'm looking at eliciting an emotional response? Like, is it making me angry, envious? Like, what's going on? And that's when I'm like, okay, I am too invested in whatever I'm looking at that I need to put my phone down. So that's like my personal, that's when I like close my phone out and I'm like, okay. And then also every evening I have like a thing set on my phone where like it reminds me to just like not use it anymore past like 11 p.m. So then that way I separate like my evening routine like from my phone. So I'm not like looking at social media right before I go to sleep or right when I wake up, because I think that really affects like, you know, your sleep routine. And also when you wake up, you don't want to set, you know, bad standards for yourself, basically.
How hard was it to start doing that when you first, like the first time you ever were like, whoa, this is happening? Like, what was going through your mind?
It was actually really hard. Like, I think you mentioned it took you a few years to like get into physical fitness. For me, it took me a long time to actually be able to find my own balance. So I used to like scroll on my phone till like 1, 2 a.m. back when I was like a student athlete, and that would like affect my like next day and stuff too. But now that I'm older, I don't do that anymore. But yeah, you have to.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's just about starting with action and just do it anyways.
Yeah.
And then the motivation to keep doing it will follow.
Yes, because it's harder to just like think and plan something and stick with it rather than just say 3, 2, 1, do it, and then use that motivation to.
Yeah, that's funny. I have this saying that I say in the gym. Maybe Sean's heard me say this to clients before. It's kind of funny, but I say, less thinky, more doey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Stop thinking so much and just do.
Yeah. So it's actually funny. One of the things with people with anxiety, like one of the ways to help them through it, it's to keep your hands busy. So with people with anxiety, you tell them like, find a way to keep your hands busy. So let's say you're overthinking something or like a situation, do something with your hands, like whether that's like knitting or like maybe journaling, something that takes your mind off of what's going internally. So redirecting is really helpful.
Wow, that is so instead of trying to just stop doing it, you replace it with something else, kind of like the whole replace a habit versus cut it out.
Yes, like if your dog is a puppy biting you, you stick a bone into his or her mouth and then they continue biting that. And that's something I've actually done with my dog. So
say that again. Say that again one more time.
Like if you have a dog that's a puppy and they're biting your arm,
yeah,
you stick a bone into their mouth.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you're just replacing.
Yeah, versus telling the dog, like, stop biting. They're, like, confused. They don't understand, right? I think it's similar with people. Like, you can't just tell someone, stop being anxious. Like, stop being depressed. It's like, that it doesn't work that way. So it's like you have that energy that's focused on the anxiety, but if you can redirect it, then you can actually reduce the anxiety.
Yeah, and I think something else that you mentioned the dog and the bone or whatever, but I feel like food is an easy thing for people to. This is like I didn't mean for this to happen. This is a kind of punny, I guess, but the food is something that they're biting on, right? Because it's like so easy. It's so you know what I mean to find, and that was very much me for a while. So breaking that cycle of food can be very difficult, but we need to, what you're saying is don't try to just kill it completely. You need to replace it with something else.
Exactly. And I actually have an example with what you just mentioned. Like I actually had a very unhealthy eating habit, more so when I was a student athlete versus now. Like what's easy to get, right? Like Taco Bell at like 11 or like 12 p.m. So now when I have cravings, instead of preventing myself from those cravings, I switch it with something else. So if I want something sweet, I'll go get a spoon of peanut butter from the kitchen versus like, I don't know, like lava cake. I have a really bad sweet tooth. So I'm not killing the craving. I'm just replacing it with something that maybe is not like as tasty, but it gets the craving to go away. So that's been helping a lot. Yeah,
a healthy alternative.
Yes.
For sure.
And that doesn't mean, and not to interrupt you, but healthy alternative doesn't mean you have to like eat kale every day. Because when some people hear healthy alternative, they're like, ew, I don't want like almond butter. And I'm like, you don't have to eat almond butter. Yeah. But, an alternative that is an improvement for you. So, if you eat like refined sugar every day, maybe switching to like honey. Like it's still sugar, but it's better. So it's like whatever your own,
And also, do you think there's something going on there to where not only are they actually doing something better, this would technically be like a placebo effect because they are doing something better, but they also think that they're doing something better.
Yes.
And now that positive interaction.
Yes.
Rolls into the next thing.
Yes. And I think it really has to do with like that, like self-image or just self-belief. Like, hey, I can eat healthy for like this much time. Like, what else can I not do? and it just like keeps rolling. And even if it's like a little change, that's why what you were saying, like less thinking, more doing, that actually does help, because when you start doing it, it's something different happens in your brain and you're like, oh, well, I did it. I can keep doing it.
And now I can keep doing it. And then another thing, now that I'm keeping doing it, what do I have to do to stay motivated? Like to do this for a very long time? Like what's, in your opinion, what's the secret sauce to keeping that? Now I started, right, which was the hardest part. The next hardest part is keeping doing it, right? So what do I need to do to make that happen, to stay positive, about the situation?
So for me personally, it's cheat days.
Okay.
I look forward to my cheat days, but not so much in the fact that like I'm only like looking forward to them. But I actually like to compare like before and after pictures of like when you're eating really unhealthy versus like healthy and working out. And that satisfaction, as I'm sure you know from like working out, it's like your body feels different, and that feeling can be addictive in a good way, because I've noticed before when I've like been eating healthy and then I eat fast food for whatever reason, I don't feel good after. I feel like, wow, like I shouldn't have done that, And I think the more that happens, that means like the better that you're doing, because you've created habits that last a lot longer.
And what's going on in your mind? I mean, we don't have to talk about like physically, but I'm more the mental part. You eat that, and then like that little feeling of remorse, like feeling bad.
You get that too?
Oh yeah. But what's going on there? Like, do you think that's okay for people to feel that way, or should you like push that away?
I think a little bit of remorse is actually good, because it motivates you to not reinforce that behavior. It doesn't mean you should like, I don't know, have like a burger and then hate yourself and think that you failed at life. But it's like, okay, I had my burger, like let me not eat one again for a certain amount of time. And I
feel like it shows that you care.
It kind of
shows that you care.
That's a really good point.
It's like I actually care. Yeah,
exactly. And I think with that, a lot of the food we eat is like processed or refined, and when that enters our body, it goes into our bloodstream really quick, and because of that, it spikes our blood sugar. And that actually can cause depression and like lead to more anxious symptoms and depressed symptoms. And that's like why when you drink like a can of Coke in the morning, you're probably going to have a crash like within like the next hour or so. So I think that also affects your mood.
Yeah, it's like it's like a reaction type of thing.
Yeah, your body's telling you that like, oh, please don't keep putting this.
Yeah. I had a question too. You mentioned like as soon as you eat something bad, you feel like your whole life is a failure and you hate everything or whatever. Why are we so quick to do that? I mean, I made one little mistake, but I still feel like such a failure to myself, to everyone around me, to anyone that that's looking at me. Why does that happen so fast?
Yeah, I think so. That's actually catastrophic thinking, like all or nothing thinking, like I'm the best or I'm the worst. There's like no in between. So I think that happens because we're always harder on ourselves than on others. Like if you told me you ate a pizza yesterday all by yourself, I would say like, oh, that's unhealthy, but I'd be thinking that's not bad. But then if I did the same thing, I would probably think way worse because I'm judging myself versus judging someone else.
I heard a piece of advice one time, and I should do this with myself more often. I haven't even thought about this in a while, but I'm going to start reenacting. But and it was actually Peter Attia. Do you know who that is? He's a super famous physician at this point in the like longevity and health and fitness field. But anyways, he was telling a story on a podcast I listened to one time about he was going through some anger management, and his therapist told him to. Anytime he lashed out, and that was his big problem, he would always lash out at himself, like internally and even externally. And he said that anytime that would happen, the therapist's recommendation was to stop. I want you to pretend that you were your best friend and you just witnessed your best friend lashing out. What would you tell that person?
Yeah.
And it was like so opposite of what you would tell yourself.
Yeah, you would be way more comforting and understanding and compassionate, but we're not always that kind to ourselves.
And why though? I don't. It's hard for me, and I do it too. And I'm just trying to figure out why. We put ourselves on this huge pedestal, but with others, we want to comfort them so much. So have you ever thought about like what the difference is?
Yeah, I think it's our expectations of ourselves versus our expectations of others. I think a lot of the time we make our own expectations a little bit unrealistic. So anytime we have like a little slip up or a little mistake, it's the end of the world. And I know like I've had that before too, like where I like made a mistake in something and I'm like really upset about it, but then someone else makes the same mistake and I'm like, oh, hey, you learn from your mistakes. That's a good thing. So it's like very different, but that therapist advice is actually really good. Like when you lash out, like, treat yourself like you would treat your best friend, because that, and I think the way, or like the narrative that we deal with ourselves, like the way we talk to ourselves internally will make a lot of difference. So if you fail or if you succeed, like be your own best friend.
That's like my biggest takeaway there. Yeah. Be our own best friend all the time. Do you think that it's unhealthy to expect too much of yourself, or do you think that's something that we should learn how to deal with? Like, I mean, maybe that's a loaded question, but do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. I think it's healthy if it's reasonable. If it's something unreasonable, like 6-pack of abs in like 2 weeks, then, you're setting yourself up for failure, because when you don't reach that goal, you're going to lash out at yourself and think, wow, like I wasn't able to do it. What's wrong with me? But if it's like, I want to work out this many times a week and eat healthy, that's a lot more attainable. So one way builds confidence. The other one, you're basically like
tearing yourself down a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's super interesting. That kind of reminds me of something that I experienced like last year. So we started running fairly recently. When I started working here, I started running with the other trainers and other things like that.
Yeah.
First couple of runs went really good. It was fine. I was like, man, this is nice. And then I just wanted to do longer and longer and longer runs and become a lot more committed to it. And I remember I would really like beat myself up pretty bad when I would miss the runs, or if I went to a race on race day and I just didn't show up physically, mentally, how I should have shown up. And I would really and it really kind of ate me up pretty bad. And I was kind of like, man, this sucks. I started loving running at the beginning of the year. And then towards the end of the year, I was like, man, this is kind of not my favorite thing to do anymore, because it's like now I have these runs that are like almost looming over my shoulder, and I would try to or I would work out during the week and I wouldn't show up on the workouts, and it just felt like it was just this never-ending loop. Like I would, and so something that I've gained from just like watching other people run and learning more about running and things like that is just when you get to the actual race day, you want to train so that when you get to the race day, you can enjoy it and just have fun, because that's what it's for. It's not for you to set a new PR, to try out a new breathing exercise or something like that. I mean, it is for setting a new PR, sorry, but it's not for practice. Yeah. It's for enjoyment. And I went on a run recently, and it was a short run, and I kind of went in with that mindset. And I had so much fun, like running, like enjoying and taking it in. You're running into the end of the race, and you hear like the band playing, people cheering, and people, yeah, come on. They don't care what time you came in. Yeah. They're just like, man, they're just happy to see you came in. And it's like, it kind of changed my mindset moving forward for sure. But you can definitely be your own worst critic.
Yeah, Lee taught me that when he said that, your practice is the hard part. The race day is the fun and your time to enjoy all the work that you did, it is hard mentally to do that because you put so much pressure on yourself for a race day. And I very much experienced that. I ran the Houston Marathon 2 weeks ago and it did not go as planned at all. And you can ask Sean, I was like not about it that day. It just didn't go as planned. Took me almost an hour longer than what my goal time was. And it wasn't an unrealistic goal. It was the goal that I set was a stretch goal, but it was realistic for me to achieve. I did not achieve it that day. And yeah, it was very rough mentally, but I look back now, I'm very glad that that I decided to finish, because I almost didn't. My plan was to finish in less than 4 hours. So at the 4 hour mark, I pulled out my phone and I texted Denver, my girlfriend, because I had told her that morning, like, hey, I'm going to be at the finish line at 11 o'clock. Race starts at 7, 11, I'm there. Okay. And so 11 o'clock rolls by, and so I had to pull out my phone to let her know that it wasn't going as planned. And I was in such dire physical and emotional pain, because you're out there, and like my right leg was just like wouldn't move, right? It was just like totally locked up. And these people are just cheering you on, and your name's on your bib, right? And they're like, come on, Philip, you got this. Pain is temporary. You can do it. And I'm just like, dude, stop yelling at me.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. Let me cry for a minute. But I pulled out my phone, and I was so close to telling her, like, hey, just come pick me up. I'm at the corner of X Street and Y Street. I just can't finish. There was a point where I was laying on the ground on the side, because like my leg like locked up, right? But yeah, I'm glad that I decided to pull through, and I feel very good about myself. Yeah. But in the moment, that was very difficult to do. But anyways, what Sean was mentioning was enjoying the process of the whole thing, especially from a fitness perspective.
Definitely.
It is so important. So can you talk a little bit about, why it's good to have a goal that is realistic, but then, enjoying the process and staying motivated? Is that something that you ever, put thought into? Maybe you're talking to someone that has the particular goal, but how do I make sure that it's, one, realistic, stay motivated through the whole thing, and actually enjoy the process?
I think understanding the purpose of certain things, going back to like Sean's example, like you were training like for the race, but not, maybe not to get your own PR, but, you wanted to be able to show up and perform well on that day. Yes. So I think the goal of performing well is something that we need to remember. There's been a couple of times before where I've had like tennis matches where I practiced so well the days before, and then on the day of the match, I played super bad, and it was really depressing. But I think with creating like attainable goals, I think what matters is really looking at your own past experiences and seeing what has worked for you and what has not worked for you, if that makes sense.
And then, just taking it one step at a time, enjoying the improvement over time.
Yes. And just reframing, or looking at your perspective. Why are you doing this? Like if I want to go play tennis, I'm not going with the intention of being the next Roger Federer, because at my age and everything, like it's not realistic. Sure. So I think being realistic, but then also like, why am I doing this? Just asking yourself why. And I actually do that for a lot of things that I do, whether it's like I'm going to eat like a certain meal or like do something work related. I ask myself why, because I want the things that I do to be intentional. So I feel like if we know the intention of things, that makes it easier as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Knowing your purpose, being a better person that I am today than I was yesterday with this goal. This goal just happens to be what I'm shooting for, to become a better person.
Yes.
Right? Versus I'm only doing it for this goal.
Yes.
Yeah, the improvement over time is really what matters. So
yeah.
That's so important. And a lot of takeaways, I think, from today, that one for sure, in general. So the last thing that I kind of want to ask you is, let's say someone is struggling right now. Yeah. Mentally, they know they need to do something. I don't know, maybe they're on medication, maybe they're not, things like that. But like, what's step one? How do I get out of this thing? Like, what's the first thing that I need to do? And that's kind of maybe how we can wrap this up.
Sure. Step one is definitely acknowledging that, something is wrong, and that's okay. Like I think a lot of people think if there's something wrong, that shows weakness or there's something wrong with you. But the fact is we all have like mental health issues at some point or another in our lives. So realizing that it's normal and okay is, I would say, step one. Then the next thing, I would do is tell someone that you trust. And I think when you do that, it's almost like speaking it into existence. More likely than not, this person will say like, thanks for sharing. I'm sorry you're going through this. Let's figure out a way we can, acknowledge the problem and like deal with it. So I think after talking to someone that you trust, I think then being able to reach out to like a mental health professional and then seeing what they would suggest, like, if it's like a medication or like therapy, that type of thing. But I think just speaking it into existence helps a lot. And then something that I wanted to share that is a way that I think about a lot of things. I like the existential therapy approach, which is like looking at life from like a very broad perspective. So when I'm upset or happy or just feeling anything about something that happens in my life, I try to close my eyes and imagine I'm like 90 years old and I'm looking back at this moment. Is this feeling of anger that I'm feeling at someone else or anything, like, am I going to care when I'm 90? And then when the answer is usually no, like nothing is that much of a big deal that I'm going to look back at it and say, wow, that was a big deal. So that makes me like reframe things and take things more lightly than I'm taking them at that moment.
Yeah, that's such a difficult thing to do.
It is.
But I do agree, if you were to do that, most things wouldn't matter all that much.
Yes.
Yeah, so interesting. Well, thank you so much for everything that we discussed today. I learned a lot. I'd love to, discuss again, maybe more things, anything as you learn. I know you're going through your journey of getting your license, right, to actually work with people in the near future. So that's super exciting.
Thank you.
Anything else that you want to mention maybe before we wrap this up?
Yeah, one quick thing. It's seemingly random, but it's really helpful.
Okay.
If you're struggling with your mental health and you go just sit at a bench at a dog park, it does wonders because you just see these like dogs running around and they're so happy and they're living in the moment. So sometimes when we're struggling, we're so caught up in our heads, but then you see these like dogs like running around, enjoying the air, enjoying the weather. It does something to you. So that's something I've actually done before, and like I feel better after just like watching these dogs run around because they're living life in the moment. So it helps take you out of your own head.
Yeah, such a great point. So yeah, live life in the moment.
Yeah.
If you're struggling right now, acknowledgement. Find someone you trust, and then find a professional.
Yes.
Right. Step 1, 2, 3.
Yep. That's
Awesome.
all okay and normal.
Yes, it is okay to have these thoughts and these feelings, and you can overcome them.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Sean, we're out.
All right. See y'all later.